So that's a thought on the bibliotherapy and mental health. Getting persons to recognize it doesn't have to just be journaling. And even if you journal, it's some of what you journal that could become your book that you wish to share. So the workshops will expand. I have had to speak about mental health across a lot of topics, but this is a new one because one of the things I've learned through the Authorpreneur is ensuring that you're using the book to open other doors and not just be dependent on the book.
Hi, I'm Hennika Watkins Porter, speaker, coach, author of Podcast Power, inviting you to listen to the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast, brought to you by Ruth Taylor, best-selling indie author and the Caribbean's most trusted voice on entrepreneurship. Get ready to dominate entrepreneurship.
It's episode 209 of the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ruth Taylor, and today we're going to be talking about, we're looking at writing poetry as therapy and what they call bibliotherapy. And we're going to be hearing from Sheryl Garriques Lloyd, who has produced her debut book, Love and Poetry, a mental health journey of healing. She was one of the winners of the Small Book Big Impact Challenge, and she is going to help us to discover what it takes to cross the finishing line. For those of you who've been wanting to publish for a long time, to write and publish your book, and maybe it's years. Sheryl has been part of my Indie Authorpreneurs Facebook group for about 7 years, and she finally published her debut book on March 5 of 2026. It became an Amazon bestseller, and she has begun to receive reviews. And Sheryl is on her way to becoming an authorpreneur, and she's going to be launching this book in May, Mental Health Month. And when we do the interview, you will learn more about her journey as a mental health advocate and a nursing professional. And so I want you to stay tuned.
Your book is the perfect spark to get the fire going in your personal life, career, business, or ministry. Light that book spark today.
All right, so let's start with the latest in my authorpreneurship ventures. Now, May 9 is my birthday. And since 2018, I normally publish a book for my birthday. And so this lovely flyer for those who are watching the YouTube version. So you're invited to Dr. Ruth's Triple Treasure Celebration 2026, right? Saturday, May 9, 2026 at 4:30 p.m. Central, right? It's going to be on Zoom. The theme of the evening is From Calling to Completion. And that's the book. The e-version is coming out on my birthday, and that's for $2.99, and the print book will be for $12. So it chronicles my doctoral journey and the lessons learned. So it's a virtual birthday, book launch, and doctoral celebration event, and it's going to be on Zoom, but you have to register for it. So it's going to be a time of creative worship and thanksgiving in poetry and song, because the book has 2 poems, one for the start of the journey and one for the end of the journey. I am going to be having a panel of past doctoral students from 3 different universities, including Bucky Graduate University and myself, and we are going to be talking about what it really takes to complete a doctorate. There'll be persons who finish in time. There'll be persons like myself who took a while to finish. But we're going to share some tips, because one of the things that helped me when I felt stuck in 2024 was listening to a webinar of past doctoral students. And as they share the journey, for example, there was a a lady who had 5 children. I think she was starting a business and she was able to complete her doctorate. Now, I was saying, if that lady with so many responsibilities could do it, so can I. So my intent is for this event to help those in doing higher studies, perhaps a doctorate. You're on the journey or you're about to start the journey. And it is also for those who've been struggling to complete something, that they've started a while now, from calling to completion. So the book is not just for people doing the doctorate. It's really for those who are struggling with delay, and it's to encourage you to cross the finish line, to finish what you've been called to do, to finish what you've started. I'll also be sharing my Authorpreneur Secrets blueprint. We'll have virtual cake cutting, and I'll tell you what's next on the journey. So it's celebration as well as encouragement, consolation, celebration, and challenge to encourage you to finish what you've started. But admission is purchase a copy of the book, Calling to Completion. So the ebook, $2.99, or the paperback, $12. Any version, just email me proof and register. You can go to authorpreneursecrets.com/triple treasure 2026 RSVP by April 30, 2026. And so if you want to support me on this journey, it's my birthday and you want to give me a birthday gift, I'm accepting cash gifts or book purchases. And I have set up a page on the website for that. And that's authorpreneursecrets.com/triple treasure 2026. I'll put a link in the show notes. And so it's there, RSVP. You put in your name, your email, tell us if you've purchased the book or not. You can also opt in to receive regular newsletter updates from me 2 or 3 times per month. I send out personal updates on my authorpreneur journey, and I teach and share about authorpreneurship, usually on a Monday or on a Thursday. So May 9, From Calling to Completion will be launched, and you can submit your birthday cash gifts, whether via PayPal or credit card, on the site, and there's a description of the book, some of my credentials. So that's how you can support me. And remember, you can get the Authorpreneur Secrets blueprint for download at authorpreneursecrets.com/blueprint, or just go to the authorpreneursecrets.com website so that you can begin to see how your book can become part of a larger ecosystem, how your book can be a launching pad, and how your book can go from book to profitable business or transformational program. So it takes you beyond book sales. For a long time, the tagline for this program was winning beyond book sales. I also saw that ALLY, the Alliance of Independent Authors, at the London Book Fair, they were talking about the rise and rise of the authorpreneur. I feel like this is still, as I said last week, a Kairos moment, that I am doing the right things at the right time. So authorpreneurship is trending, becoming an author entrepreneur. And so in terms of the book itself, I have formatted the book, and the next step is to complete the cover, to print it, to proofread it, and upload it. The print book is going to come out before the ebook. So the ebook on my birthday, May 9, but the print book, perhaps within another 2 weeks or so, it will be out. So you can pre-order From Calling to Completion now. And I want to say thanks for those who've pre-ordered. It's just $2.99. It's already made the Amazon bestseller list. I saw it at number 24 in one of the categories. And so that's the latest in terms of my authorpreneurship ventures. So we take a break and we go to the interview with Sheryl, Garriques Lloyd. Today I have with me Sheryl and Garriques. She recently published her debut book, Love and Poetry, a mental health journey of healing. She's a registered nurse, lecturer, mental health professional, and advocate who blends professional expertise with lived experience to create a work that is both deeply personal and universally relatable. If you've ever loved deeply, hurt silently, or searched for healing, this book was written for you. And today she's here to share about mental health. And as one of the winners of the Small Book Big Impact Challenge that was held in November 2025. Without further ado, let's welcome Sheryl to the show. Welcome, Sheryl.
Hello, Ruth. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good. The last time we did an interview was for the Design to Win podcast during COVID, and now you're here for the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast.
Isn't that great?
It's
Isn't
great.
that great?
So, you have a saying, Sheryl, that there's no good health without
Good mental health.
good mental health. And behind you is AMHY, a mentally healthy you. Talk to us about this brand before we get into the book.
A mentally healthy you really became something I crafted once I realized that this is what I'm really about, on a mission to help each person become a mentally healthy, best version of themselves. And so once I officially recognized that, I think I was doing it without recognizing. I said, well, I could make a logo, create that name. I use green because green is the color of mental health. And though I am a psychiatric trained nurse, my real focus is on mental health. And so that's my mission, to have everybody be their best mental health self.
I like that. Can you distinguish for us or explain to us what is mental health or being mentally healthy? Because I think people mix up mental health with mental illness. So talk to us a little bit about that.
They do have a mix up on that. What I really found when I started looking and researching is that we use the words mental health as an umbrella term. And when you Google that or you type to search that in, a lot of information on mental illness actually comes up, but they are two different concepts. So mental illnesses have to do with symptoms and seeing a mental health professional, having an official diagnosis. But being mentally healthy has to do with the way you are able to cope with life, the way you are able to manage your stressors, the way you are able to tap into the coping mechanisms that help you to manage when there are additional stressors and to really go through life, building resilience and adapting to life as it goes along. So there are two different things. There's no diagnosis necessarily, and there are different points depending on what's happening to us where we all may be a little bit mentally unhealthy because it's a daily work. It's not a destination. It's something we have to consistently work on.
Okay. So how would I know if I'm mentally healthy in dealing with certain stressors? Say, for example, the death of a loved one, or you're dealing with the job loss. A mentally healthy person going through that, what would that look like?
That looks like, for instance, grief, job loss is the same thing, and it comes under grief if it's even death. So, for instance, working through the stages, recognizing that we are going to have a response to the loss, working through the stages to get to acceptance, recognizing that culturally, sometimes or societally, we are going to respond in particular ways. So if I'm going to cry, if I'm going to have a period of not sleeping properly, if I'm going to perhaps get withdrawn, or if I'm going to keep myself very busy and occupied as a partial part-time mechanism, then that's normal. But eventually you will get to a point where when you get to acceptance, you are now able to go back to functioning just like yourself. So you're going to be sleeping well, you're going to be eating well, you're going to be able to talk about it and recognize if that the things you've been trying, taking a nature walk, talking to others, journaling, if they're not working, part of being mentally healthy is recognizing I may need some professional help because these are additional stressors that have happened to me in life. But you should get to a place where you're able to accept, understand, and move on.
I love it. So just because I have a breakdown as a result of a loss or I can't sleep or think is doesn't mean I'm in a state of mental ill health. I'm going through a normal process. But if it is prolonged, and I'm not getting help at that stage, no, we would be in an unhealthy state.
Correct. Because they're normal responses. It's the way we deal with it. And it doesn't mean you have a mental illness either. It's just a matter of getting some help to move on from that. So if it's prolonged or if it gets to a place where you are absolutely unable to function in your everyday life, maybe not grooming, not dressing, sounding irrational when you speak, then definitely look at going over into the illness. But it's a normal reaction for anybody to go through what we call the grief process when there's a loss of any kind.
I love it. So if we're following you, mentally healthy you, and we're following Sheryl on this path, what can we find? What do you have to offer to our audience?
What I offer at this point, people have asked me, do you do counseling? I don't do counseling. One aspect of being mentally healthy is having self-awareness. I know I have the propensity to absorb problems, so I've never considered counseling. So what I really do is mental health education, mental health promotion. I offer information and resources, pointing in the right directions, giving you tips and other things to help you on your daily journey of being mentally healthy. So if I'm branded as a mentally healthy you across my social media platforms. I share on mental health and particular topics 1 week in every single month, along with the newsletter I write on a first Monday or the live online session on a fourth Monday. And all of that is geared towards having persons empowered with the knowledge they need. Sometimes the difference between life and death is having the right information or knowing where to turn. So we need to keep the conversation going so people can know this. And so that's what I really go about. And I'm really trying to ensure that persons know and they can find that. So while I do all those two, you can find me in workshops, in actual seminars, in actual webinars, doing the same thing, sharing the information and the resources.
Awesome sauce. Now, I started this way to lay the foundation to introduce your book. 1/3 of scripture is, for those who follow the Bible, is poetry. And when I found that out, I was shocked. 1/3, but it doesn't even sound like poetry. But Hebrew poetry is different from English Western poetry, right? With the rhyme and the rhythm and the meter. Hebrew poetry have a lot of parallelism and, that kind of thing. My first expose or so in writing was through poetry. I used to write poems and then I would turn them into postcards and sell them. So I've been an authorpreneur before I even knew the word, but my first poetry book came out last year, Dare to Love Again, a reflection on love, loss, I think, and legacy. And you've written other books, co-published. You're an established person, but your first solo book, I am going to bring it up. Love and poetry have that in common. And then you tied it with your focus on helping us to be mentally healthy persons. Because if it's one thing that can mess up your meds, it's love gone wrong. And so talk to us about the putting together of this book, why this book, Love and Poetry, a mental health journey of healing. Talk to us about this book, Sheryl.
Um, I would like to. I was laughing as you said that. First of all, I didn't know it was a third. I knew their poems. I mean, read Songs of Solomon and what David wrote. They're poets. But Putting this book together, I didn't even think this was going to be the first book I would write. However, in mental health, one of the things we encourage as you work towards being mentally healthy is writing. And most people use journaling as their option to write. But there are other ways to write besides journaling. And I'll be very, very honest. This book is a compilation of poems I would have written as far back as over 20 years ago. When we started getting in the computer era, I would take them from the paper and put them into Word documents and save them. So I never thought this would have been the book I would have put together. But it really was about love. And you just said, if it's love gone wrong, I tell you also if it's love gone right, because I think it's the biggest of emotions. And if you don't pay attention, it will distract you and overwhelm you and you forget all other things. And even as a parent, you learn unconditional love when you hold your children, but you also have to learn how not to spoil them and still allow them to be their own person. And so when I recognized this was a book spanning several years that really spoke honestly about how I felt and the experience of it, I said, well, actually, this could probably help somebody. I think you always have a saying that somebody's destiny is tied to your book. And I was afraid because it's poetry from me. I'm like, boy, what people are gonna think. But I said, let me put it together. And then I got the suggestion, put it into your brand, recognizing that I did use it as a journey of healing because when I had no words and I had no tears, you put it into a poem. I said, all right, let's just do a basic mental health component to that. So when you finish reading all of those and you're able to go to the end of it, you're able to get some tips that can help you as you apply them. And then you're able to do your own little assessment to see where am I and where do I want to be going.
I love it. So, there's bibliotherapy, and my first book came out of Processing Love, Heartache Queen Unshackled.
Mm.
And so writing for me was therapeutic and it gave birth to all that I now do. So, and I find that poetry, when I'm in love, the poetry flows. And recently, like with that book, it helped me to process things. The book of Job, for example, in the Bible, is mostly poetry. And that is processing loss, difficulties, sickness, different things. The Psalms that we love, they are poems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it allows us to process our emotions. And so it naturally ties in with being mentally healthy. And so we're saying one of the ways that you can process your emotions and be mentally healthy is to go on a poetic journey. Even if you don't feel like you're a poet, try
Agreed.
framing it through poetry. So, are you going to have any workshops on poetry and mental health now?
Workshops on poetry. I agree. I don't think of myself as a poet, but I could see this as a possibility to not just talk about the writing of the poetry, but using the bibliotherapy overall, getting persons to recognize it doesn't have to just be journaling. And even if you journal, it's some of what you journal that could become your book that you wish to share. So the workshops will expand. I have had to speak about mental health across a lot of topics, but this is a new one because one of the things I've learned through the Authorpreneur is ensuring that you're using the book to open other doors and not just be dependent on the book. So that's a thought on the bibliotherapy and mental health. I didn't think of that, but it's a consideration.
All right. So part of what brings you here is the Small Book Big Impact Challenge of 2025. I know for many years you wanted to write a book. How did the Small Book Big Impact Challenge help you to complete this book? Talk to us about that.
Um, so I joined the Authorpreneur group. It's been 7 years, and every November I love the challenge. I'm jotting down some notes somewhere, working on a couple things. In fact, I had other books started before now, and I'm a big fan of cheering people on. So even though I never won anything, I like the idea of that specific time frame. So last November, in fact, I didn't even officially register at the beginning, but I challenged myself and I said I had the poems put together. I've looked at the mental health aspect. I put it in. I said, while this is happening in November, let me just see if I can polish it up. One of the things I employ when I do exams is if I'm done, I double check if I answered everything, I put it down. So I did the same thing with the book. When I thought I was done, I put it down. So at the end of November, when you said we didn't have anybody for poetry, boy, I took a deep, deep breath and I said, all right, let me send it. So when I sent it, honestly, I don't know if I had any expectations. And when it came back that I was a winner, I was like, well, look at that. With what I would have won, including access to the Authorpreneur Secrets Masterclass in the academy, having a coach assisted to me, and having the structural editing, I think it just gave me that final boost to say, you can do it. So when I put all of that together, I said, well, I'm getting help. I've done the work. Then I just need to just believe and let it go. So honestly, that was a big part of getting this published.
I love it. So it was a commitment, and then the group support, watching and that kind of thing. But for somebody who's been wanting to write a long time, because a study was done in the US a couple of years back, it said 86% of people would like to write a book, but less than 1% do. And I think it still holds true today. For somebody who's been wanting to write for many years, like it took a decade for me to believe that I could write after being told that I would have books in the future. It took a decade to actually do it. So, from your perspective, for the person who has been procrastinating, know they should write, but don't know how or what to do, how can you help them move from desire to done? What would be your advice to them?
My first bit of advice would be that delay is not denial. So just because you want to and you haven't figured it out yet, don't give up. My second bit of advice would be we find that we're on social media a lot sometimes, and some of it is for stress relief, which is good. But I would also suggest that we use it for the things that are beneficial to us. So you have the Authorpreneur Secrets group, and it's really to help persons to write. You not only encourage, you're not only coming to support, but there are resources that are given out that are free, some of them that can help you. So it includes, for instance, narrowing down what you want to write about, finding your target audience, a draft of how you could put your book together if it's nonfiction, the planning, the worksheet list, things like that, that can definitely be helpful in getting you to write. Joining some of the sessions that are provided, and it's not just your group, there are other groups and other persons. But one of the important things I learned in my writing process was putting specific time aside. So either you've given yourself an hour to write, and or you said, I want to write at least 500 words today, breaking it down into smaller pieces instead of trying to have a large space of time and not getting anything done. I would say to that person, think about what it is that makes you most happy and feel purposeful. And that may just be what you want to write about. And when you figured out how will that impact somebody, then that's probably right where you are in terms of what you want to do. Talk to persons who are involved in writing and publishing, do some search and get some insights into how you can go about it as well. And lastly, I would say if you have it in you and somebody else points it out in you, then I would say just believe and then keep going a little at a time. It doesn't matter how long.
I love that. If you have it in you and somebody points it out to you, then just believe. Because that's the common thread, Even with our story, somebody pointed it out, and yeah, and I am so happy for those points that you just made. In closing, though, Sheryl, with your new Amazon best-selling book, and you already have a few reviews, what's next? And then how can persons contact you?
What's next is, I would say one of the things that has happened to me is I fought imposter syndrome. That's why I just said just believe, because anybody who knows me would be saying, really? And I had to convince myself, of course you can do this, Sheryl, and no, you can add something. So I would say what's next is that having gotten the first book out and exhaled, I'm working on a few more books. And I would also say I've taken your suggestion for the workshop, but nothing else will change. I'm intending to officially launch my brand, including the book and our books in May, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm usually doing 31 days of activity. So if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, or you go to the Mental Health Mondays newsletter on LinkedIn, you'll be finding me for all 31 days. But for every month, I'm there for 1 week. And when I launch that brand officially, then I'll be out and about. I'm doing presentations and workshops, and I will officially work on a website for this year as well. So you can always just Google a mentally healthy you, or if you look for the hashtag, there's no good health without good mental health, I will always pop up.
I love it, Sheryl. You're a true authorpreneur. Because you are building, your book is part of an ecosystem. It's not just a product on its own. So you see, I'm smiling and I'm glad you are at this stage. And it really has me thinking, instead of just journaling, poetry and mental health. I love it. So I can see people sitting with you and you know what? Let's process some emotions, joy, sadness, grief, you name it. And let's write a poem on spot and do that. I would want to suggest that during May that you have a competition where you encourage them to actually submit a poem and then you have a vote on it and you announce the winner. Maybe they get a free copy of your book or something else. But I think that would also spice up what you're going to be doing in May. And you could read excerpts from your book as well. So you're blending it. It's not divorced from it. So, poetry and mental health. I think that would take off. It would perhaps help you to get some more followers as well. And so what do you think about that?
I like that, and I'm going to use it because one of the ideas I had was my Mental Health Mondays, the live sessions are free and they're on fourth Mondays. And I was intending, as part of my launch, to do the Mental Health Mondays within the launch on the fourth Monday and include the book. So now somebody wins that prize from the poetry competition, they'll definitely get a copy of the signed book within the launch. So that's definitely a good idea. Really great idea, Ruth. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Sheryl. And I know the listeners would be blessed. And remember, listeners, there are viewers. There's no good health without
good mental health.
All right. I trust that you enjoyed that interview and you learned something and you are fired up to move from desire to done where your writing is concerned. And I encourage you to get Sheryl's book and join the Mentally Healthy You movement. All right, that's it for today. Just reminding you that of the making of books, there is no end. Go pen it to win it and dominate authorpreneurship. Ta for now, until next time.